Hi, Frank.
There, I had on mute. Hello.
I had mine on mute because I was eating chips. So. Chairman Green, you're muted. It says on my screen. Ah, there you go.
Thank you, sir. I don't know where that button is on this, Mr. Horton.
I do not want to have to wear the mask on screen, George. So keep that mask on. You know, I didn't do so good when I sat there last time. I had mute buttons going on and different laptops put in front of me. So
We're going to call the meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock, gentlemen. Well, the work session is Isabella County Board of Commissioners to order. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to
the United States of
America,
to the
the
republic
republic for which it stands, one
a
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Green,
George Green, I'm in the county building, room 225.
Commissioner Engler,
Here, I'm at my home in Deerfield Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Commissioner Jelezinski,
Present from my home in Chippewa Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Commissioner Horton,
I'm at my primary residence, Union Township, Isabella County.
Commissioner Marino,
I'm at my residence, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, Isabella County.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here attending remotely from my
was that City of Mount Pleasant?
city of Mount Pleasant.
Okay, you got a little gravelly there. Commissioner Hope,
I'm here. I'm attending remotely from my home in the city of Mount Pleasant.
all present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. We have a hearing is item number 5. We have under presentations and special reports. We have the controller's report, Margaret McAvoy. Brings us on to committee reports, finance and administration.
Finance and Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
And item C is the Human Resource and Public Works Committee.
The Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Hope, do we have any intergovernmental affairs this afternoon?
Not today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Margaret, do you need anything under administrator control?
No, sir.
Okay. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have a closed session for collective bargaining agreements. Motion to approve the agenda as presented is in order.
So moved, Marino.
Support Swaney.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda approved. At this time, we have general public comment. That's item number 4. Nicole, is there anybody that wants to speak to the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we do have some non-staff joining us. I do not see anyone with their hand raised at this time for general public comment. The caller we have on the phone, if you would like to raise your hand, you would press *9 at this time for general public comment. Chairman, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Then we will move on. Item number 5 is the hearing. And at this time, I'm going to open the hearing. And then I'm going to read the procedures of the hearing. The purpose of the hearing is to provide interested parties, owners Irving and Kim Preston, who requested a hearing pursuant to MCL 3401, opportunity to address the board with respect to the conditional rezoning request for the property located at 10297 South Lyman Road, Blanchard, Michigan. Rules of procedure. The interested property owners or their representative will have 5 minutes to address the board with respect to the conditional rezoning request. Then the applicant or the requester or his representative or her representative of the conditional rezoning request will have 5 minutes to address the board relative to their request. I just want to make a comment on the 5 minutes. I appreciate people sticking to those rules, if you would, please. Item number 3 is then we'll go to staff. Then they'll provide a brief summary of the item. That'll require questions from the board which will address the staff. 5, the interested party owners, Kim Preston, their representative, will have their 5 minutes. 6, the applicant for Eli Harschenberger will have his 5 minutes or their representative. 7, will conclude the questions or comments from the board may be heard at this time. And 8, we will close the hearing. So moving on, item number 3, Mr. Nieport. Tim, how you doing? I'm gonna let you go and start your report, Tim, on the conditional rezoning.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to give you a quick summary, a brief summary as I did to HR last week. So the Planning Commission held a hearing back on September 10th with regard to zoning amendment 20-02. That request was from Mr. Hirschberger at 10297 South Wyman Road. That was recommended for approval to the county board in a 5-3 vote that evening. I did then move this application, as I do all, on to HR committee for review on the 29th, provided them with a staff report and moved that through to them. It was then at that time put on the board meeting for the October 6th county board meeting. At which time we had, the clerk had received a letter on September 25th from Mr. Piper requesting this hearing. The letter was certified and it met and was in compliance with MCL 125-3401. Then on October 1st, a letter, I believe, was submitted directly to the county board expressing their opposition. It was from a letter from Mr. Piper as well, expressing his opposition or their clients, his client's opposition to the request. I believe it was Friday that week, October 2nd. We spoke with our attorney, our corporate counsel, Tim Perrone, and we came to the conclusion that we would remove the item from the agenda for the October 6th meeting, in that I would speak with Mr. Perrone with regard to the opposition letter. I did so I did speak with Mr. Perrone the week, I think it was October 7th, that same week of the board meeting that we removed it from the agenda. And Mr. Perrone found some issues with regard to that letter. Sorry, I can't read my writing. I lost my glasses off my head. Then the board meeting moved to October 20th. The item came back up for the board to set a public hearing for this November 17th date in compliance with MCL 125, 3401 and 3103, in which we did notify and provide notification in a proper manner to both the requestor, Mr. Piper, and his clients, as well as the property owner, which was recommended to us by our attorney. So we sent notices to both of those homeowners, our property owners, and then I also took it upon myself to go ahead and forward an email to both Mr. Piper and Mr. Weiss, showing them the notice that we had sent to their clients. On November 9th, then we received a letter via email from Mr. Weiss, and that was forwarded on to the board, and that was a response to the allegations of Mr. Piper's letter dated October 1st. And then last week I brought this to committee, and ultimately here for the board to hold the hearing. So I'm not sure if the board has any general questions for me at this time, or if you want to let the requester, interested property owner, Mr. Piper, representing them, and Mr. Weiss have their time now, and then we can answer questions after them. Totally up to you.
Actually, Tim, I'd like to do it right now. If the board has any questions of your explanation before we go to the Pipers and the Horsenbergers to talk. Are there any questions for Tim? Seeing none, I have one, Tim, that's reading all the stuff over. Did Mr. Hoffenberger, it's confusing between the two attorneys, because one attorney claims that Mr. Hoffenberger, I think that's the father, had an application in a year ago. And then he sent a letter to the board that he wanted to withdraw that application. The other attorney says that was actually voted down by the planning commission. What's the correct statement that you have in your minutes in that?
So the previous year, on a different piece of property to the north, a 40-acre parcel to the north, Andy Hirschberger, the father of Eli Hirschberger, brought a rezoning request to conditionally rezone the property. The planning commission took a look at that time, had some concerns with regard to some public comment that they had received, and they had made a recommendation at that meeting for a denial. And I can't remember how the vote went. It was a split vote as well. I believe it was within days prior to me getting it around to get it moving forward to committee and to the county board. Mr. Weiss had contacted us with a letter from his client requesting to rescind that application. I did have some conversations with Tim Perone, our attorney, with regard to that. And, that's something, again, that he kind of disputes this information. And I think in Mr. Piper's letter that it was a denial by the board, or at least it's the way it sounded in the application. There was not a denial from the board there. It was an application that did not make it to the county board with a recommended denial. So it was not an actual denial.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Has anybody else got any questions before we go to the comment section? Commissioner?
Yes. Yeah, Tim, I've been looking at this map here. Is those, I know where the outline where you wanted to change it from AG3 to AG2. Now, is the property just south of that I couldn't tell if is that all AG3? That whole section or?
Yeah, the property surrounding it there is AG3. This is a 20-acre parcel, kind of blown up to scale. I think if that's the map you're looking at, completely surrounding it is AG3 property. And this
I kind of figured that.
This request is to conditionally rezone that AG2 piece or AG3 piece, that 20-acre piece, to an AG2.
Okay, I kind of figured that, but I couldn't tell from the map.
Chairman Green, I have one quick question, or not question.
Mr. Horton?
Just as a cleanup, Tim, also, I believe in our packet, the staff report includes, it says the minutes of the one meeting is unapproved. I believe those got approved at the last planning commission meeting, correct?
Correct. This is the same staff report that I sent you in September, which would have been the unapproved minutes attached to it. And I think we just forwarded that same staff report forward to you. But at our last planning commission meeting, those minutes did get approved. And if I recall, there were no modifications to those minutes upon their approval.
You are correct. There was none. So,
Any other comments, Commissioner?
Yeah, I have a question, Tim. Did you finally get any communication from Tony Caselli, the road commissioner or manager person?
Yeah, we did talk, not specifically about this action here necessarily, but we did have some conversations with Tony Caselli with regard to other road activities, but nothing specific to this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We're going to move on now to the inter parties. This is for the Urban Kim Preston and their representative, Mr. Piper. At this present time, it's your turn to speak. And you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners. Thank you for having us. As was explained earlier, I represent Kim and Irving Preston. They have asked me to speak here because what they're really concerned about is the commercialization and the industrialization of what right now is their rural agricultural neighborhood. Their neighbors share in this concern, and they want me to pass that on. The application, as I know you have read and have studied in committee, asks for a change from Ag 2 to Ag, from Ag 3 to Ag 2 in order to allow for the operation of a sawmill. As an initial matter, this board has to determine whether the operation of the sawmill is even contemplated in the Ag 2 zone. As I indicated in my letter to you, there's only one mention of lumber mills anywhere in the zoning ordinance, and that's in a light industrial area. The reason that is because, quite frankly, sawmills and lumber mills are inherently industrial by nature. They come with noise, they come with trucks. The evidence that the precedents have seen are stacks of logs as high as the building, 4 semi-trucks that have brought these logs ready to be milled. This is not a small operation, as their attorney continues to suggest. As I did say, section 8.02, the light industrial area, does have the mention of the lumber mills. Mr. Hirschberger's argument here is that this fits in as milling and processing of farm equipment, which we concede is allowed in the Ag 2 district. But the purpose of that category is for milling and processing incidental to a farm operation, not bringing material onto the property and turning it into a final product. If I farm trees, I can remove the branches. If I farm grain, I can store them in my dryer. That is the type of incidental processing that is allowed. If you take their argument to the logical conclusion, it would be, if I'm a potato farmer, I can operate a potato chip factory on my land. Or I can get potatoes from my neighbor and operate a potato chip factory. That simply cannot be what this board or its predecessor intended when it adopted that section, that milling and processing section. Lumber mills are in the light industrial or industrial areas. Even if the board does determine that a sawmill is milling and processing of farm equipment, in order to rezone, it still needs to determine, under what the Michigan Supreme Court requires as the law in RAB, that there was a mistake in the original zoning, or that the character of the neighborhood has changed so significantly to warrant rezoning, and that there's a public purpose. Most of the area, as was there was a question earlier, is Ag 3. There's no mistake. The community is still rural agricultural, rural farming. There's no changed neighborhood here. We recognize Mr. Hirschberger's interest in having a business to support his family, but that's an individual purpose. That's not a public purpose. That's not something for this board. That's Mr. Hirschberger's individual interest in having that. Simply put, rezoning this property is not appropriate under that standard. And the board has to think about rezoning and land use as a whole, not a patchwork of individual decisions where you have one small parcel here and one small parcel there, because conditions or not, that rezoning lasts forever. It's sold to the next property owner, it lasts forever. And so it's important that land use happen in an organized and orderly way. And that's what this board is here to do. Adopt a zoning ordinance, adopt a master plan, and consider land use within that context. Not to say, well, individual property owner A and individual property owner B have certain interests and we're going to accommodate that. We do recognize, and this is my final point, we do recognize, and I want to clarify the letter that I did send almost 2 months ago now. We recognize that he has submitted conditions with respect to his rezoning request. The problem is that rezoning of this nature is a slippery slope. Mr. Hirschberger wants a sawmill. The next neighbor comes by and says, You gave Mr. Hirschberger a sawmill. I want a place to store my excavating equipment. The next neighbor comes and says, I want a place to have my fuel storage location. The next neighbor comes and says, I want a place to have a salvage yard. And we're going to put all of these conditions in order to allow that to happen. But suddenly the rural or agricultural character of this area is completely destroyed by the individual decisions all along the way. The people that are left holding the bag are the neighbors. Our Kim and Irving Preston are the neighbors who oppose this, are the neighbors who purchase property with the expectation that it would have the rural, agricultural, pristine country atmosphere. We urge you to deny this request, and I believe I'm probably at my
Mr.
5 minutes.
Pfeiffer, your 5 minutes is up, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank
Item
you.
number 6 now is the Eli Hossenbergers their representative. Mr. Wise, I believe you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I hope you can hear me just fine. I'm Tom Weiss. I represent Eli and Annie Hirschberger in this application. I wrote to the commissioners on November 9th to take issue with 4 points that were raised by Mr. Preston and his attorney. The first one, is this the proper place to fully explore challenges of law and how this commission has dealt with this? And I would suggest that this application is consistent with so many other applications that this commission and its planning board beneath it has dealt with over time. Does number 2 Ag 2 district permit a sawmill? It absolutely does. Milling and processing of trees, no matter the arguments of council, we would disagree with that vehemently. We would point out, for example, that the Mader Brothers sawmill up in Wademan, a huge sawmill, is on Ag 2 property. There's very much precedent for dealing with Weber and Mader within agricultural districts, not light industrial. Is this opening the door in number 3 to other Ag 2 uses? And I think as council opposite has finally agreed to, that this is conditional rezoning. We're looking for one thing and one thing only, to be able to mill and process trees as an agricultural product. Lastly, is this an end run by Andy Hirschberger, Eli's father, to do an end run around this process? We had discussion with the Planning Commission last week on this topic. I can assure you that it is not. These are independent. We are not looking to integrate these operations. This is a small affair. An Amish bandsaw mill only puts out 350 board feet an hour. You move this thing around by connecting it to a horse team. Amish tradition and of how they deal with employees only permit a maximum of 3 non-family members to work on that. The expectation here is that Eli Hirschberger would only use 2, and as he's operated this operation down in Montcalm County, that's what he's done. We've addressed many issues with staff, sawdust, waste, the road commission, maximum of 6 trucks per month. 4 trucks in, 2 trucks out. The noise issue has been studied. The noise at the 700 feet, which is the distance between the sawmill and the Preston property, is only 34 decibels. I had to go to school on that, found out that that's roughly the conversation between 2 individuals 3 feet apart in a normal voice. Noise shouldn't be an issue. Letters are important. There have been many letters and signatures of support in this thing, but I'd like to indicate that in the 1.5 miles on South Wine Road, between Pleasant Valley and the other border road, in that 1.5 miles, there are 11 residences. 2 of those are Hirschberger residents. There are only 9 individuals that are in that area. As to soil types, which has been a minor issue in this, we had discussion with the USDA soil conservation people here in Mount Pleasant, who gave us the belief that the soils in that area are perfect for a sawmill. In fact, they're better suited for sawmills than many other uses. So we respectfully request that this commission approve this conditional rezoning and allow Eli and Annie Hirschberger to operate this small mill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this present time, we're going to go to the conclusion of the Board of Commissioners to ask questions or comments on it, on what you've heard, or go back to staff, Tim Newport. Questions?
Chairman Green,
Yes.
Jim Commissioner Horton here. This is directed to Mr. Weiss. I may have heard this incorrectly, or I may have heard it correctly. I don't know. You stated the amount of decibels that was going to be put off. What did I hear you say? That was the sound of the sawmill itself cutting the wood, or did I mishear that? Didn't interpret that incorrectly?
No, Mr. Commissioner, and I can tell you what happened there. I've had with some other Amish applications an issue of sound come up. So we went out and purchased a decibel meter. I went out to the site in Montcalm County to the south, same machine, same exact machine, and measured the sound right at the machine. And then I progressively went back 100 feet at a time. By the time I got to 700 feet away from the mill, the sound level was 34 decibels. In fact, that day, I remember it clearly, there was a screech owl out there that made the needle jump up. The owl was louder than the mill was.
Anything else, Commissioner Horton?
Yeah, so in other words, again, I could look this up, but if you could save me some time doing that real quick while everyone else is speaking. 34 decibels, you said, is equivalent to the sound of two people talking in the same room right directly from each other?
3 feet away is what the OSHA standard sets forth, I believe.
Okay. And that is the sound of a sawmill. That is continuously the sound, though, correct? If the sawmill is running, that it would be continuous sound.
That's exactly right, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Hope?
Yeah, for Mr. Newport, I think I read in the Planning Commission minutes where it talks about other sawmills in the area. I'm wondering how many other sawmills are in that area, and were they also rezoned from Ag 3 to Ag 2?
Yes, there are. I don't know the number off of the top of my head, Commissioner Hope. There is 2-3 of them that have had conditional rezonings identical to this, where they're giving up everything in the, prohibiting everything additional in the Ag 2 with exception of that milling and processing of farm products. And then there are one maybe or two others that are taking place just regular permit process because the land was already Ag 2. So there's 4 or 5. And when I say in the area, I'm talking about in all of Rowland Township and maybe even the southern side of Broomfield Township.
Okay. Were any requests to rezone from Ag 3 to Ag 2 for this purpose turned down previously?
None that I can recall. This activity started about 2012-ish, 13, where we started getting more of a population of Amish in that area who were wanting to work from home or from the farm. And in my time, I don't believe that there were any that actually received a denial.
Okay, thanks. Then my last question is, Mr. Weiss mentioned the Mader Brothers sawmill in Wademan. Is that Ag 2 property?
I would have to look that up. If you give me 1 second, I can look that up.
Okay, it looks like Frank has an answer to that question, maybe.
Frank, Commissioner Engler.
You're muted, Frank. Frank, you're muted.
Okay, you probably want to do that all the time. This is a question for clarification on that, on both the Maders and the Webbers. Now, the Maders LLC does own property in Ag property, but it's not part of the sawmill. It's part of the corporation, but all the sawmill property, I believe, is zoned industrial. If I'm wrong, you can correct me on that, but the property next to them is farm country, but that does not have any of the operation. That is zoned agriculture. The property where the sawmill is industrial, so is with Maters. And if I'm wrong on that, you can call me out on it, but I'm pretty sure that that's how that's zoned. Tim, can you clarify that?
Yeah, I hate to call you out on that, Commissioner, but the property that the actual mill does sit on, I'm looking up at our GIS right now, which I believe is pretty accurate. And it does show that as Ag 2 property. On the north side of Wademan Road there, that's all Ag 2. The southern side of southern side of Wademan Road is a commercial industrial district in there where like the auto salvage auto JJ, or I forgot what their name is, JJ's Auto or J&J Auto.
Yeah, the south part.
Yeah, those are.
I'm talking about the large track.
Yeah, the piece to the north,
Right
where the mill actually sits, is Ag 2 to the north.
Well, you need to update your GPS because I just was on here. Maters Enterprises shows as industrial.
Mr. Chairman?
I do have that.
That's where I got the information from, huh?
I do have it up on the GPS or on my GIS system on the, I kind of turning my map here. This orange pink area right here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but that orange pink area is commercial industrial. This area right here is blue. That's Ag 2. And right here is where the actual Mater Brothers sawmill plant is, which is in the blue.
Tim, you need to lift your camera or tilt your other screen or something. I don't think it's like,
There you go.
there you go.
Can you share your screen, Tim?
Well, I was just.
I can't actually because I'm on an iPad and then I have my other two screens up for my purposes, so I cannot share.
Okay.
That's okay, Tim. Just re-explain it and point to it.
So this area right here in this kind of pink, high pink area, that's a commercial industrial district area. Strauss's old masonry place over in here. I think J&J Auto is up in here, and there's a couple other of industrial manufacturing places in here. Across the road here is Ag 2 in blue. That's north of Wademan Road, and Littlefield Road teeing into it. This area is Ag 2, and that is Mater Brothers sawmill.
Okay.
Other questions?
Jerry has his hand up. Jerry has his hand up.
Jerry Jelliginski, sorry. Thanks.
Thank you. I just looking at the list of things voluntarily given up, will not be operated. One is the solid waste disposal area, and I would take it that would be also solid waste that you yourself produce, such as sawdust and wood. And we did look at those photographs that were sent to us, and they were being burnt. There's a lot of combustion, and would probably be an irritant to the neighbors. But it said that you must meet state standards. I don't know what the state standards for that are. If you can burn the slab wood. If you can burn sawdust, how do you dispose of it? Is there a plan for disposing of it?
Well, yeah, there's two issues in. Jerry, that's the issue of the next phase. If the board were to rezone this property, the applicant isn't ready to go and start a sawmill and start operating out there. He still has to come in front of the planning commission to obtain a site plan. And in that site plan, the application or the planning commission can then provide standards. Some things that were of question previously on this was, and are on all of these, is a noise issue typically. And we typically, the planning commission, I believe on every one of them, has done some insulation around any generator that they use, and they construct a building around it. Many of them provide for us a waste disposal plan where they burn the slab wood for home heating source, or they provide burning inside of an incinerator, not an open burn. Many of them do things like use some of the sawdust for animal bedding. So they'll distribute that, or they'll sell that, or they'll move that to others in the area for some animal bedding. So this process here is just simply the conditional rezoning component. Those finer detailed items comes at a site plan process, which is which is, not a public hearing, but it's something in front of the planning commission, where if they meet the conditions of or if they comply with the ordinance requirements, then they would get approved. But the planning commission can also inject some conditions onto those, such as stated, 6 trucks per month, or, those types of things.
Also, standards to, so you don't have blight on the property, that would all be coming at that time?
I don't know that we can actually place something for blight on the property. The county doesn't have a blight ordinance, and the county doesn't operate with regards to a blight ordinance. Some of the townships have blight ordinances, and they could take up blight issues if there were blight, but not typically something with blight with regard to blight and a specific use.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Nicole. I just want you to be aware, Mr. Chairman, that there is an unknown caller with their hand raised now. Perhaps you could restate the rules of the hearing.
Nicole, we will not do that. That person will have to wait till the end of the meeting. We've gone through general public comment and allowed both people to have 5 minutes, so they'll have to wait till the end of the meeting. I'm sorry, but that's the way it works.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a question both attorneys have spoke to this. It's a conditional rezoning request for the property. Mr. Pfeiffer is stating that if this goes through, you might get other changes for other pieces of stuff to come up from Ag 2 to change other lands down, say from Ag 3 to Ag 2. If this goes through and it's going to be for the Ag 2 for a sawmill, how I guess controlled is this so that nothing else can ever come in that? Explain it to me, please. If George Green comes along and they split that property, I buy the property alongside it, can I say, hey, Tim, I want to put in a trash dump or something. That goes from Ag 3 to Ag 2. Am I going to be able to do it?
So to answer your question, I believe I understood it was if somebody owns that 20-acre parcel and they sell a portion of it to George Green,
Yep.
Can he then operate any of those other uses that are in the Ag 2 district that it was rezoned to? The answer is no, and our attorney specifically states that to us in the fact that if you look into the conditional rezoning statement that is to be signed by both parties and recorded, that is not the case. This travels with the land, as I believe both attorneys may have stated, and the conditional requirement stays with it. So anybody who owns property would be required to follow those same conditions on that 20-acre piece of property.
So then my quitclaim deed on that piece of property would state that.
I don't know that your quitclaim deed would state that, but the actual conditional statement of agreement or statement, let me get the actual terminology here. The conditional rezoning statement of conditions agreement is required by the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act to be recorded with the county. So these are actually documents that are recorded in the deeds office. So if there is a title search on this property and there was a transfer, the title search would have then turned it up and they would see that there is conditional agreements within this property.
And the last question I have, Tim, is how long does this exist? I mean, forever, or until we change the master plan, or what goes on here? Me and zoning are about as far apart as gasoline and fire. But what I mean is, how long will this go on?
So it's forever. However, the county board does have the option with its recommendations and changing conditions over time that areas do change. And when they change, the master plan gets updated and modified, then changes could come and could take place there. That's the case anywhere for any rezoning, whether conditional or non-conditional. It doesn't exempt the property owners that are currently on there from being able to continue to operate like they were, but it does place the ability to make that change back on the board. The other time that it could change is if this were approved and the applicant were to violate the terms of the agreement, whether that's zoning violations, related to the special site plan review in this, or any other violation, breach of contract, the county commission can revoke and rescind that conditional statement from them, and it would automatically then revert back to the Ag 3 without the conditions, making that property not usable for that purpose.
Gotcha. Commissioner Marino.
Yes, thank you. I remembered instances before our committee where this kind of conditional rezoning was approved. And also, I noted that lots of people are in support of this. We got signatures and so forth. And also, I want to comment that this is a process. So like Mr. Nieport mentioned, this is the first step. If the board approves this tonight, there'll still be a site review and all that. So I'm confident in the process where all the contingencies are considered, and also a person, a family has a chance to live there and have a livelihood with their family. Right?
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, real quick on a matter of order. These are just questions. We still have time as commissioners for discussion after a motion would be presented. Is that a correct statement?
That's a correct statement. And human resource and public hearing, that'll happen.
Okay. And Tim, my question to you, I guess, would be a real quick statement. This maybe is following up on Mr. Piper's question, but I'll ask Mr. Nieport this. Mr. Nieport, as far as agricultural 3, let's say, for instance, I'm going to give an example. The Prestons wanted to open up something that was I'll throw something out that would be a permitted use in section 2, not a sawmill, but something that would be a permitted use in Ag 2, but not Ag 3. What would prevent them from saying, I want one use and I want to change my zoning from Ag 3 to Ag 2 and I want this one use done? You did it across the street. I don't want to put a sawmill, but I want to put this in. Now, all of a sudden, you're changing Ag 3 areas into Ag 2s with one special purpose. Again, I'll save this for discussion, but is that a possibility in this scenario?
Well, every property owner has the right under the law to come in front of the commission and request a rezoning. It doesn't mean that every property owner is going to receive an approval. So can it happen? Absolutely. Every single property owner in Rowland Township could walk in the door with an application to rezone or conditionally rezone. And by statute, that's something that is a process that they are able to and allowed by law to go through. So everybody would have that opportunity. The conditional rezoning, again, we've talked about it before. It's relatively a new concept here in Michigan. When I say relatively new, it's probably been around for 12 years now or so. But it's definitely, conditional rezonings or contract zoning activity is something that is contemplated within the law. And it is something that we have addressed in our county ordinance that we allow for those types of activities. And this is the process that we've allowed under law to go through. So every property owner does have that right.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. That's a very good statement. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? At this time, I'm going to close the hearing. And as Commissioner Horton stated, the Human Resource and Public Works Committee and the work session will be on. If there's a motion put on the floor at that time, we will basically only be able to discuss things about it because this evening is when we would take it and vote on it. I want to thank you folks, both the Wise and Piper, for coming, making the comments you did. I thought they were very worthy. There was a lot of questions and a lot of good answers. So the commission's got to make up its mind for what happens this evening. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to presentations and special reports, and that's the County Administrator Controller, Margaret McAvoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the fact that we have a lengthy agenda tonight, I will keep my report very brief. Two major areas of my attention have been COVID-19 and year-end business that we have every year on the commission to bring forward. We'll be very active next couple of meetings with lots of actions coming forward to the board. As you well know, our last meeting of this session this year is December 15th, which is early in the month. So we want to make sure to get all the business we need to have done in this calendar year to you in time for that meeting. COVID-19, I don't need to take up a lot of your time with this. I know that you know that we have had a number of cases in our employee group. I want to thank again the commissioners, the judiciary, the court leadership, as far as the court administrator and all of their staff, heads, elected officials, and all of the county employees. It is a very troubling for all of us in our country, in our state, in our community. But you know, there is no denying we've had an uptick of cases here with our employment group. And we are doing everything we can to try to keep our employees as safe and as healthy as possible. A number of people who are out right now as positive cases, a number of people who are out being quarantined. So keep them all in your thoughts and your good wishes, and we'll be continuing on. I recommend that anybody in the community who missed the information in the news over Sunday and Monday about the new Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order, type in MDHHS order or Michigan Department of Health and Human Services order. Anybody who's watching the meeting tonight in the public to pull that up, Google it, pull it up, and you'll read the new order. For us, it has changed some things for us, primarily change, but another emphasis for those who are employers across our state. If work can be done remotely, work must be done remotely. It's no longer a suggestion. If it can, it should. If it can, it must. So we are adhering to that as strongly as we possibly can. Certainly not all of our jobs here can be done remotely, but those who can be, we are encouraging people to do that. And as I said before, we'll be bringing a lot of business in the last two meetings to the Board of Commissioners. So we look forward to closing out the year and getting everything taken care of we need to get taken care of. So I want to thank the commissioners for your support to all of our employees during this difficult time. And I know that they are all appreciative of that. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Margaret? Thank you very much, Margaret. You've been busy as usual in that. We have no appointments to boards and commissions. That brings us down to committee reports, finance and administration. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had to see if I was still unmuted or muted or whatever. It's a different world we live in. First up, consider accepting and placing on file the October 29th, 2020 routine personnel items as presented. We have six submissions from our October 29th, 2020 routine personnel items. 5 were step increases and 1 new hire at the Parks and Rec. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Commissioner Hope and I discussed these in our Finance Administration Committee. And I don't believe, if I recall, we had anything negative or anything against this. So anybody have any questions as regards to this?
Pretty normal.
Hearing and seeing none. I actually can say I can see everyone's faces on this, and no one had a, oh my God, what are you guys thinking? We'll move this up to tonight's agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 then is consider ratifying and placing on file the October 30th, 2020 invoice list in the amount of $234,632.53. The November 6th, 2020 invoice list in the amount of $314,413.81. And the adjustment list dated November 12th, 2020. So taking those invoice lists one at a time, the October 30th, we've got the larger items that appear on page 1 there that are above $5,000. Michigan State University memo of understanding, the medical examiner contract payment, the Manna Custodian September financial services, and we'll be talking with Manna Custodian a little bit later with the financial management services report and the fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial report. Mid-Michigan developments on there, community mental health, the quarterly payment, the HATS biweekly payment, the Verizon payment, East Michigan Council of Government, NetMotion Software for Central Dispatch, KCI Winter Tax Mailing Postage, quarterly security contract with Secure Alarm Systems, and then the state of Michigan trial court user fees. And then moving on to the November 6th report, we have JC Morgan Chase monthly credit card charges, the Intrado Life and Safety Solution Corp. And then we have several public defender appointments. Colossus, the Incorporated for the jail tracker software. State of Michigan probate court transmittals. And then the McBride quality care costs that we always see. And then moving on from there to the adjustment list of November 12th. We have the Gordon Food Service early payment discount invoices there that we always see. And then a couple invoices where we had some minor calculation errors that were caught and corrected. Do any commissioners have any questions on those? Okay, hearing and seeing none, then those items will move forward to tonight's agenda.
All right, next up, consider approving the interlocal agreement designating Peter J. Preston as the designated assessor and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This is number 3 in our agenda. If you look at number 4, Mr. Preston is also included. This is in regards to designating Mr. Preston as the designated assessor to assume jurisdiction of local assessment roles in the event that the local unit fails the audit of minimum assessing requirements. What that means is if an assessor is not doing, and I think they have up to 2 times to fail, if they're not doing their proper work, the county has designated, or someone is designated to go in and basically correct it and bring everything up to speed. Mr. Preston, you're there. I can see, and I like your little background there. Did I say that? Did I sum that up in my pig Latin way of looking at things, or okay, if you can explain that probably a little better?
Oh, I would not take that as pig Latin at all. That's the perfect example there. This was put into legislation in 2018. We did not receive guidance from the State Tax Commission until early this summer. The Michigan Association of Equalization Directors got together in order to formulate a standard designated assessor. I will note there are counties out there in the state that are still searching for a designated assessor. There's a variety of ways that an assessor is doing that, whether it's through the equalization department, whether it's an individual, there's retainer fees, etc. We use the standard template as developed by the Equalization Directors Association. In this case, since we already work for the county, that we saw no reason that there be a retainer fee for the local units. So this is a no cost. We also have a lot of confidence in the assessors right now and don't anticipate that there will be any need for the designated assessor to be put in place anytime soon.
And I think also, if I recall, in reading, your organization already does this for another county, if not more than one county. So this is not unique into your situation.
Right. We do equalization for a number of counties, and some of our staff members have stepped up to be the designated assessor in these counties. Again, because of costs and because we are very intimately familiar with what's going on in the assessing practice in the unit.
I know I'm jumping, and I know I'm probably stepping on top. Commissioner Hope Stowe is a number 4, but it requires a certain level of assessor to be able to be designated as an assessor. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, currently Isabella County is designated as a level 3 assessor or a Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer, which I am. Hoping to increase or change the letters behind my name in the next year, but we'll see how that goes.
And thank you for mentioning too, I was going to bring it up, but you you did mention that there is going to be no retainer fee that's going to be associated with this since you already are contracted with the county.
Yes.
And that has to be something with the other assessing entities. And what other entities have you had communication with, or has anybody signed on board other than the county? Or how's that going to work?
Yeah, we have sent the agreement out to all the local jurisdictions and asked them to provide any comments or concerns that they had prior to this meeting. If you approve this designated assessor agreement, and we do have local units that do have some concerns or do have some comments, we'll definitely bring it to that meeting that Margaret has mentioned as early in the month, and make sure we address any concerns that they have.
What my last question to you is, in our notes and in our committee, the contract or the agreement, it's even stated in bold, will be provided to the work session meeting on November 17th, 2020. Is this what I'm looking in the packet now? Is that the final agreement for Chairman Green to sign this evening?
Yes, but again, because of the timeline, I'm sure that if we had a local unit that did have significant issues, that we would bring that to your attention and see if it needed to be changed in December. I just want to make sure that these local units have ample opportunity to read through this, since it is signing on. Now, the legislation does require that at least 50% of these folks or units do sign on, or else the state tax commission will then assign a designated assessor. If that option's there, I don't know why that when the legislation was developed, that a designated assessor was not just assigned to each regional area by the state tax commission, but that's something that I think that you may see change within this 5-year period of being the designated assessor.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Chairman Green.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. I like this thing. I particularly like who pays your wages on this. It comes from the unit. But in a question, let's suppose, I don't know if you remember, Gilmore Township had some problems here a couple of years ago. Would this have, in other words, if you were the assessor under this right here, this agreement, would you have taken care of those problems in Gilmore Township that they had, that the state actually, I believe, brought in an assessor until they found another assessor, because I believe Miss Beach died and they had to redo everything up there. Would you have, I don't know if you remember it, but I'm just wondering if this is where you would take over and do that?
Only if they failed the audit of minimum assessing requirements, which I believe that Isabella County is up in the next 2 or 3 years to be reviewed again by the state. So 2 years from now, she's a hypothetical, an assessor failed the AMAR. The assessor would be given 1 year in order to correct those deficiencies. And then so 1 year later, it's checked. And if the assessor again fails that, then the state tax commission would say that it's deficient, and therefore the designated assessor must step in. At that point, we would look at what the deficiencies are. The deficiencies could be as simple as do not have proper economic condition factors or land values in place. That's an easy fix. Let's say it's an easy fix, but that's more of an hourly thing that can be corrected. And some assessors have failed just on those just got to roll up your sleeves and take care of it kind of thing. However, some units have failed because none of their property cards are accurate whatsoever. And that would require a complete reappraisal. And that's the point that those fees would kick in. So the designated assessor is stepping in, and to be a fairly simple thing that could be corrected in a couple of weeks, or it could be the designated assessor having to mobilize staff to do a complete reappraisal. So there's some risk there. Hypothetically, say one of the larger units with 5,000 parcels, developed parcels, failed the AMAR twice, and then the designated assessor would have to do a complete reappraisal of that unit within 1 year period. So, which is a scary thought to me, to have to mobilize people that quickly to do that type of activity. But again, we're very confident right now in the level of assessing that's ongoing, especially in the larger units.
Thank you. I'm all done, Commissioner Horton.
Oh, sorry about that. I heard a bell going off. somebody's
Going to sleep.
somebody's clock was going off. It wasn't mine, and I thought, well, we'll just listen for the clock. The bell was tolling on that one, George. All right. So any other commissioners have anything else on this? Hearing and seeing none, that will move forward to this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item number 4, which is consider approving the Isabella County Equalization Department contract for professional services with Preston Community Services LLC effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2023, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. In this current contract expires that we have with Preston Community Services expires December 31st of this year. This new contract would take us from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2023. So a 3-year contract. It's the same as the previous contract, except for a provision that allows the contracted amount to increase or decrease by the rate of inflation on an annual basis starting January 21st in 2022. The county's done business with Preston Community Services since 2014. The contract for services rate has remained flat during that entire time, except to cover services that were added during that time. And then the services to be performed are listed in the staff report on A through F. I won't read through all of those, but they are listed out there. And Pete, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, or?
No, I think that's a wonderful summary of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to possibly extend the contract and continue working with Isabella County.
Can I add something?
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Margaret?
I'd like to just add that Pete and his associates have done a fabulous job for us. Equalization gets to be a tighter and tighter situation from the state all the time. It's very hard to find personnel of the qualifications that they have here who could meet the requirements of what we need to have in our county, number one. And number two, you know, many years ago, and Pete's going to be embarrassed I say this, but many years ago, I was looking for references for Pete, and I called a lot of places, and one person at the end of the summation said to me, I promise you this, Margaret McAvoy, if you can't get along with Pete Preston, you can't get along with anybody. And I had never met that gentleman before, but it certainly was very true. And Pete does a great job. You know, the personnel that he pretty well carries this whole on his own. And Pete does all sorts of other things for the county in his role with us. So, you know, he answers the call whenever the call goes out. So I couldn't recommend renewing this contract any stronger. He and his staff are a gold mine for us. And it's amazing that there hasn't been an increase in the flat rate for his services all these years. And he's not asking for an increase in 2021. He's asking for it starting in 2022. Is that a typo, or is that what you really mean, Pete?
That is what I really mean.
I know. I was pretty sure it was. I wanted you to say so for all the commissioners. I can't suggest and ask and request any stronger. Pete does a great job for us.
Commissioner Hope?
Yeah, Commissioner Horton?
Yeah, just real quick, I'd like to state that Mr. Preston has always been good to work with too. I mean, and one of the things that I want to just mention are the commissioners, as you can see, that this is a contract position. And also that the difficulty, Margaret did not, I don't think she touched upon it, but this is not an easy position to find and put out there. This is a narrow, I can't say my R's even to this day, narrowing field of candidates. And to get someone that's willing to step up to do the job, obviously he does a very good job, not gouges, willing to take on extra work or be ready for extra work and not make us pay a retainer fee, as we talked about in the last little article there, I think speaks to Mr. Preston's integrity. So again, I'm in full support of this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
My head's not going to be able to fit on the screen. Thank you. I appreciate
Oh, don't
that.
worry. We'll
Take care of that,
figure-
Pete.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, hearing and seeing nothing else, then this item will move forward to tonight's agenda.
Next up, consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2020 fourth quarter financial management services report as presented. As we stated with Mr. Preston and Mr. Krunovic, for Mr. Krunovic here and his group manager and custodian, this is a contract position. This is also one that we've put ads out before. We've never gotten anybody nowhere near the qualifications of Mr. Krunovic. This is the final report for, I believe, this year. We can all go through this, talks about journal entries, talks about bank reconciliations, talks about some of the other things that he's done, some of the boring stuff like GASB 84 and all that stuff that Mr. Krunovic and all the accountants like, but I find, that's like, whatever. What I really like that he's done, and I'm going to focus on two things and I'll let the rest of the commissioners comment, but under 5 and 6, I think that's where he's really stood out and has been willing, for lack of a better term, put his contract on the line, so to say. And he's gave I'll talk about number 6, which we really can't talk about too much yet. But I think in giving his spreadsheets over the last few years, I think they've been very invaluable. And while they're spreadsheets, they're very easy to follow, very easy to explain, and really puts the county at a very good light as far as the county commissioners go, and some of the justifications that they've done over the years as to the budget. Now, falling back to number 5, I think this is probably going to be the biggest thing this county commission, since there's 6 of the 7 is going to be returning. Chairman Green will not be, but the 6 of the 7 of us, this is going to be probably the biggest thing that we're going to see in our tenure of county commissioners is the jail. And I think number 5, if we've all had a chance to kind of give some topical review of this, but this is where the rubber meets the road, so to say, and to have this level of involvement now and going forward, this is where he's, this is putting his reputation on the line here to give us advice. And I think it's very good advice. I think it's very good detailed report. Again, he's been, pretty fair to work with. It's a lot of money we're paying for a contract basis, but I think he does an excellent job. Again, we're not renewing his contract. I'm just bringing that to the point since we just went over Mr. Preston's issue contract. That's what I see in his report. I see, oh, there he is. Steve, you're muted, so you can't, I can't hear what you're doing on me here, but.
Can't hear my head rattle.
There you go. Do you have anything to add with us before we ask any commissioners any questions?
No, I think you hit all the, like you said, all the boring, nerdy accounting stuff. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners have. Be happy to do that.
My fellow commissioners, do you have anything on this report at all? Commissioner Jelezinski.
Thank you. I noticed that the multi-year budget projection tool wasn't mentioned this time. I don't know if that was by omission or are we dropping that?
No, that is still, that is something that we worked on the template and so forth. We kind of set it aside just because of the, with the prior, quarter and a half or so not being on site, being able to get to that. And then we've kind of moved into the audit season. So again, it's kind of those things like the wind turbine revenue analysis and so forth have kind of jumped in front of that. But that is something absolutely, Commissioner, that is out there. I actually have a really nice template that we've put together and that will provide, I think, some meaningful information. I know we worked on a little bit of it. Nicole and I worked on a little bit of that with some submissions that she had to do, and we did some forecasting and unofficial forecasting and so forth. And so I think it's we wanted to work with that a little bit before we brought too much to the commission to make sure that we felt it was operating correctly. But that is definitely something that's still on the forefront, right up there, with some of these other things that Commissioner Horton brought up.
I do appreciate that. I know having some comfort being able to look down the road with the budget is going to be very important, at least in my looking at voting for the funding of the jail, so that we know we have a sustainable budget over the long term for all departments. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hope.
Yeah, Steve, one of the things I really appreciate also to piggyback on what Commissioner Horton said is number 5, the detailed analysis of the wind turbine revenue. Is kind of some new revenue that'll be coming in, and then our 2 big, how can I say this, liabilities, the pension contribution commitments and the bonded debt payments, expected debt payments for the jail project. And I really like that analysis of those 3 things that you put together. I have in my notes that you will present those at the December 6th work session. Is that still in the plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yep, that's the plan. And that is, and thank you for that. Cause I know, I tried to lay that out, and I know commissioners have seen that spreadsheet. I tried to lay it out and kind of in my simple mind to say, okay, inflows and outflows, and so I know that was, something that I hoped that, made sense and kind of the rolling forward of the dollars that weren't utilized in the prior year, and then kind of the flow throughout to 40 years or whatever it ends up being. And so, yeah, that was kind of the intention of that, was to lay it out, like I said, for me to understand. I did it very, simply. So it could be, dollars in, dollars out, and taking all those things into consideration. Yeah. And yes, December, the next board meeting or December 5th board meeting, we'll go through that.
Thank you. I'll look forward to that.
Thanks.
Any other commissioners? Chairman Green.
Just a comment. I think Steve does a great job, particularly when looking at the tax delinquency fund and PA 123. He actually went into that and thoroughly through it and came up with the numbers that I believe are true numbers in this thing that we have to have in order to do our budget properly. But I want to thank you, Steve, for the job you do, and I'm glad you're with Isabella County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing and seeing no one else, that will move forward to this evening.
Okay, which brings us to item number 6, which is consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2024 quarter financial report as presented. And just bring that up here on my screen. I think my initial reaction to this was a little bit of shock until I learned from our administrator controller that we're still expecting about 4.2 million in revenue to come in from taxes yet. So there's a little bit of lag there on the revenue side. It's always a little concerning when you see that. But other revenues for the year have been down: charges for services, fines and forfeitures. Federal and state revenues were up a little. I would imagine that's from some of the CARES Act funding that we've received. And then when you go down through, the general fund expenditures also are down. Pretty much across the board through all these funds are all down slightly. And then when you move down to the non-general fund areas, we are kind of seeing the same thing, with revenue down slightly and expenditures also down. So I don't know if Steve or Margaret, if you want to add anything to that.
Well, I think Commissioner Hope, that you've done a good job of giving the overview. You're exactly right. You have to remember that we have a tremendous amount of taxes coming in yet. That over $4.2 million that you talked about in the general fund source of revenues. So I'm not overly concerned. When you look at the 78%, it's always like, ooh, but you have to remember our timing issues. So you have to always remember those. Expenditures, you're absolutely right. They were down this year. I think that is kind of goes back to just in general, I think everybody needs to keep in mind as we're looking at these and we're moving forward and we're talking about other priorities and other things. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We are in the middle of a local, state, and national crisis. And, you know, I frankly was more worried that these figures were going to be a lot more shocking than they are. Again, it's a great testament to the people we have that we work with every day that are managing these budgets so tightly that I think in the end, we're going to come out okay. The issue with the other funds, you know, you can look at Park and Recreation. Obviously, our revenues were down because we had less campers, which is part of the pandemic. We refunded money for people who couldn't come, even though they had paid to be there. It wasn't to keep that money. You know, Commission on Aging is the timing of state and some federal funds. Looking at the child care fund, again, it's the timing of grant reimbursement. Looking at central dispatch, that's the timing of booking and when we book our receivables. Looking at recycling, our sales are down. That's just the reality. And looking at expenditures, you know, the park was closed for a few months during COVID, so therefore those expenditures were down. I think that everything that you're looking at for this year and probably well into 2021, if not all next year, is you have to put your COVID glasses on when you look at it, because our views are different and our realities are different, and we need to kind of be aware of that as we look at these types of reports. I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Horton.
Real quick too, Margaret, you took the thunder from me a little bit when you said glasses, putting glasses on. I was thinking this is got to kind of look at this as a blurry statement here because there's a lot of unknown going on right now. Just for instance, the use of the fund balance. We know that we spent a lot of some of the fund balance to spend on some jail expenses that are coming up that we know we're going to probably recoup in later on. So some of that's not necessarily you know, we have to show that we're using it, but that's going to come back. Again, with COVID, you just, you know, you anticipate some of the services, the charges that we're going to get. That's not going to be there. So,
Exactly.
Commissioner Hope made a very good statement that him and I both panicked when we saw that number, thinking, oh my goodness, for taxes, we're 4 million. That's not good. But again, it's early. Hopefully that's going to come in. Again, you look at the wind turbine revenues coming in, all the new turbine revenues coming in. County is in good shape. And as we mentioned earlier, it's how we plan going forward. It's how we plan in the future, how we spend new revenue coming in. We know we've got 2 big expenses coming in and how we do that. I think that's very important, but again, it could be much worse. We're very fortunate in Isabella County that we do have some new sources of revenue that's sustainable.
Exactly. And just to tack on, I think that there was a projection that we were going to spend $1.3 million in fund balance for FY20 after we looked at the adjustments we had to make for what we had paid out for the jail project. Actually, it looks like we're most likely going to spend $596,000. So right there is a huge difference, number one. And number two, whatever we spent in this year's budget will be returned to the general fund when the jail project is funded. So as you said, Commissioner Horton, whatever we're spending on that jail project now and into the foreseeable future, until we get our funding in place, will be returned to the general fund.
Okay. Chairman Green.
Well, I really like the wind revenue removed like it is or put in place over there is at 461,000 down in Cole. Next year, when you do your budget, you'll have to remember, don't have a heart attack because you're only going to get 50% of the revenue in the next budget for the 136 that are up that are going online. 2022 is when you'll get 100%. And I like that because that's what commissioners have got to keep their eye on, because that's what's basically going to be the grounds to pay for the jail. Not all of it, but most of it. And spending it for something else besides that, you'll be in a powerful herd of trouble. But Commissioner Horton and I have talked, Margaret and I have talked, and I like to be able to look at my money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, then that item will move forward to tonight's agenda. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the work of the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, gentlemen. Go to item B, the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee. Gentlemen?
Yeah, we have one item here, and that's consider adopting resolution 20-11-01 Randall Joseph Yunker Agreement termination, and instruct the Isabel County Clerk to forward the approved application to the MDA Farmland and Open Space Program. I actually know where this property is at. It's there's two properties there. There's a house, and it's actually been split out already. So used to be an old barn there, been tore down, foundations there. So they seem to meet all the requirements. What'll be interesting in this one is that right behind that property, they built one of the windmills. So it'll be interesting to see if someone buys that property for a building site for a house or something later, because I don't think that it's going to be farmed or anything. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody wants to build next to a windmill. So, but it seems like all the application seems to be in order. So that's all I have. If there's any questions?
Chairman Green?
Frank, I tried to find, or Commissioner Engler, I tried to find out if that was leased or not, and it didn't have it in the application. But I don't know if it is leased. It must be, because
I think it would have to be how close that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it'd have to be in there, I would think. So I'm not sure if they sell, if they're going to keep the lease or not, but it would almost have to be leased to the windmill.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's what I was looking at also. Thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move this to tonight's board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, that completes the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee work for the evening, for the work session.
Thank you, gentlemen. Brings us up to the Human Resource and Public Works. What do you have for us this afternoon, gentlemen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving the Fisher Annex lease for Deerfield Nature Park effective January 1st, 2021 until December 31st, 2021, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This is something that happens. Could we have Sue Ann Kuffner, the Director of Parks and Recs, speak on to this issue, please?
Hi, everybody. I assure you that's not my dog barking.
It's fine.
As Commissioner Moreno stated, we renew this agreement each and every year. We've been utilizing this property since 1983 with an agreement with Bud Fisher and called the Fisher Annex property, and it's through his river project. And in exchange for using this property of 160 acres, we pay his taxes. The taxes right now are about, last year was close to $5,000, as you see in my report. The agreement commences on January 1st, and it goes through December 31st. Mr. Fisher has signed the contract agreement with, waiting for tonight's meeting, and it's approved, then Commissioner, the chairman would sign the document. And always like to review this each year with you guys, because it's Deerfield Park is definitely a premier property, and that piece of property is just really beautiful, and I'm really happy that people are able to utilize it. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions, but
Does anybody have any questions or comments, commissioners? Commissioner Horton.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Moreno. Just real quick, I say this every year. This is year number 8 that I've said this, that piece of property is essential to Deerfield Park. I mean, that links up with anybody who likes to canoe or do anything like that in our county. That piece of property is just outstanding. Lakes, it's essential to that area. Mr. Fisher's been a great patriarch in our community, and it just goes to show that, again, him and his family both are to do something like this and to allow the community to enjoy that area speaks volumes for them. So again, in full appreciation of this. Thank you.
Commissioner Swaney?
Yeah, piggyback on Jim Horton. Like I said in the subcommittee meeting Saturday before this, it was 70 degrees, and my wife and I were canoeing through Deerfield Park past this property, and there were lots of people out walking this property and utilizing it. So obviously, our citizens are using it heavily, and definitely blessed to have this property available to us. That's it.
Commissioner Engler?
Yeah, that is a wonderful property, and one of the perks of being on the Parks and Recs board is that we get to have meetings out at Deerfield Parks and all the different parks, and it's such a beautiful thing. I wish we could have all our meetings at the park because it's in summer, it's just beautiful and it's fun to be out there. So that's all I have.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Jaroszewski?
I know the first 2 years, 83 and 84, there really was no contract. We wrote the contract in 85 after I was brought on as Parks and Recreation Director, and it's been smooth sailing all these years. And Mr. Fisher's been very beneficial in returning things to the commission, to the county, including some logging dollars that were provided. I think were eventually used in the construction of the solid bridge over the Chippewa River, the pedestrian bridge. But it's been a good partnership over the years, and I'm looking forward to the day that we no longer have that partnership because we have ownership of the property. Hopefully that comes about.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll put that forward this evening. Commissioner Swaney?
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suad. Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Item number 2 is consider approving the Region 7 Area Agency on Aging contractual agreement and other required documents for fiscal year 2021 and authorize the board and chair to sign the same. All right, this is year 2 of the 3-year contract with Region 7 Area Agency, their fiscal year 21 approval. Jen Crawford, what's up?
Yeah, so this agreement actually also marks the 48th year of service agreements between Isabella County and Region 7 Area Agency on Aging as well. So what this agreement, we receive funding from this agreement to help support our in-home services program and also our nutrition program. And the amount that we receive is approximately 20% of those budgets for those programs. And this is effective October 1st through September 30th of next year.
Any questions, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll bring this forward to the regular session tonight at 7.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, our last item is the one that's we've been dealing with for a couple of months. It is consider adopting zoning agreement 20-02, which amends the Isabella County zoning ordinance map and section 28 of Rollin Township by rezoning with conditions to describe property from agricultural buffer AG3 to general agriculture AG2 and authorize the county board chairperson to sign the conditional rezoning statement of conditions agreement.
Good afternoon again, everybody.
Thank
we
you,
have.
No, report.
Sorry about that. We have this is the zoning amendments 2002. It's what the hearing was with regard to earlier in the meeting. We have a conditional rezoning request to move from Ag 3 to Ag 2. The property is located at 10297 South Lyman Road in Blanchard, Michigan again. Section 1509 of the county zoning ordinance addresses conditional rezonings. The intent of the ordinance through the conditional rezoning is to recognize that there are certain instances where it would be in the best interest of Isabella County and as well as advantageous to property owners seeking change in zoning boundaries. If conditions could be proposed if certain conditions could be proposed by property owners as part of the request. Section 1509 is basically language that comes from the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, which allows a resident or a property owner to apply for conditional rezoning. All the conditions that are applied for with the request are something that need to be done in writing and voluntarily. It's not something that we can impose conditions on. As I talked earlier about the site plan process, which would be the next phase of the process, if this were to move forward in a site plan process or in a special land use process, we can impose conditions upon. In this conditional rezoning under state law, the applicant has to voluntarily give things up under contract, and the county has to accept that. Mr. Hirschberger has requested this operation for a milling and processing of farm products, or a small scale sort of family farmed sawmill. The milling and processing of farm products definition, there is no definition for milling and processing of farm products within the ordinance. However, under farm products falls trees. We have worked through this process, and we have made that interpretation over several years with regard to our ordinance. And while talking with our attorney over the previous letters from Mr. Piper and Mr. Weiss, our attorney agrees that that is a reasonable interpretation of the ordinance to consider milling and processing of farm product activity a sawmill. The conditional rezoning is subject to the following uses being prohibited: centralized bulk collection and refinement, storage and distribution of farm products, conservation areas for fauna and flora, excavation and transportation services, facilities in the research and testing of farm products and techniques, farm equipment sales, service and repair, fisheries and hatcheries, forest preserves, fuel storage facilities, game refuges, kennels, nursery, including landscape services and Christmas trees, salvage yards, septic waste disposal, or septic waste storage facilities, solid waste disposal areas, sorting and grading and packaging of fruits, vegetables for growers, storage of stale seed, feed, and fertilizer essential to agricultural production and veterinary services. So those are the list of items that in a regular rezoning would be allowed in the Ag 2 district, that which he's offering up to us as prohibiting. So he will not be allowed to do those. What he will be able to allowed to do is the milling and processing of farm products if this is moved forward. Attached with the my staff report, you saw a conditional rezoning statement of conditions agreement. This is a template that I worked with our attorney, Tim Perrone, to put together. This has been the same template document that we've utilized in several of these other conditional rezoning applications, all of which we've discussed with our corporate counsel. In accordance with section 1509, the Planning Commission held a hearing on September 10th. The motion was in which a motion to recommend approval to the County Board of Commissioners was approved in a 5-3 vote to amend the plan, or to amend the ordinance in section 28 of Rowland Township from Ag 3 to Ag 2 with conditions. Prior to the hearing, and I believe all the way through today, you were receiving, I think, signatures from both the attorneys and citizens on both sides of the matter. We had several opposed to it, several for it, in the matter of signatures. I do talk a lot to the Planning Commission about it's always good for those to express their concerns with regard to a signature, but there's details that need to be there a lot of times. When you say I'm opposed or I'm for it, and there's no reason behind it, the Planning Commission still has to utilize reason in the ordinance to get themselves to an approval or to a recommended approval. At this time, the request is in front of you to move the action for approval as stated by Commissioner Moreno at the beginning of this section. And that's all I have for you at this time.
You'll open this up for comments and questions at this time from the commission. Commissioner Hope.
Yeah, thank you. Tim, there was a concern about burning of sawdust, excess sawdust. And did I read somewhere that that was not going to take place? Was that offered by Mr. Hirschberger that he would not be burning sawdust?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things in the application that Mr. Hirschberger said if the reason, with the sawmill, we're going to do these kinds of things. We won't burn, won't have open burning, and there was a few others in there. They're not part of the conditional request because they're going to be part of that site plan process if the rezoning moves forward. If the rezoning moves forward, they'll come forward with that, and we have a list of things dealing with, the truck traffic, the size of the operation, the burning of materials, the noise. As I stated earlier, we try to get them to insulate that generator house to keep noise down and those kinds of things. Those will be addressed in that site plan application if we get to that next phase.
Okay. Mr. Engler, Commissioner Engler?
Yeah, as you know, this is my district, so I've been fielding phone calls for quite a while now. During my due diligence, of course, had to do a switch here because I was looking at Mader's and Weber's sawmill, and on the county GIS, it still has it as industrial. So I'm trying to get my mind around that it's really a G2 on that one. So, which actually, looking at Mader's operation and a little bit with Weber's, the size of that operation, and I'm looking at the map with the G3 around there. Actually, I was having trouble trying to decide if that should maybe be an industry zoning instead of an Ag 2. But now seeing that it isn't already an Ag 2 and Weber's and Mader's is an Ag 2, and looking at the size and the scope of those operations, I'm not sure if I can support that going in that area. I mean, it's no longer a small sawmill operations, especially when Mader's got the pellet operations in there and the size and the amount of traffic that goes in and out of those sawmills, because I farm around there. So I see a lot of traffic. So I was kind of surprised that Mader's and Weber's were in Ag 2, because on the website it was industrial, and that kind of made sense for me, but I'm not sure that could be considered ag, and to keep you look at the general rural area of that, I'm not sure if we want to change that in that condition or not. So right now I'm leaning against voting for that, just because I'm not sure if that's really an agricultural industry, even though forestry is, but I'm not sure if that's a good fit there, and I'm not sure if we want to start putting little spots of zoning in the middle of rural areas. So unless someone can convince me differently, I just don't see it. It's just too much of an straight agricultural area there. So that's my comments on that. So,
Commissioner Horton?
Thank you, Commissioner Moreno. Just a couple of things I want to touch base on. First, as the commissioners know, I am the board's representative to the Planning Commission. And on this result, there was Mr. Nieport mentioned it was a 5-3 vote in favor to bring this to the board. I'm in full support of the 5 members who did vote for or when I say support, I mean, I respect each and every one of them. It's a very difficult position to ask a member of the community to sit on that board. It is one of the more difficult boards to sit on if you're a community member. There is a lot of passion involved on people who do bring things in front of that board. So I do respect every one of those 5 folks who voted yes for that. There's nothing I can say negative about any of their votes. They came to a rational decision, I feel. That being said, I was one of the 3 who did vote no. And I based it at that time on one of the strongest points I had, that to the property to the north of that, pretty much we did the same thing. It was basically a denial of, in the Planning Commission. When I say we, I mean the Planning Commission at that time decided not to want to bring a vote forward to the board in a denial, I believe. And so it is a correct statement that this board, the county commissioners, never made a decision on any properties out there. One of the big concerns I have with contract zoning is I take a look at, if you look at this area, this is pretty much right in dead center in the middle of Ag 3 all around it. That is one of my big concerns. It's not like on the edge of an Ag 3 and it's an Ag 2, abutting Ag 2. This is right in the middle of Ag 3 properties all around it. That to me is a concern. That being said, I could get over that concern if the neighbors around it were in favor of it. Obviously, the Prestons are not. I believe they're right directly across the street. They are not in favor of it. And looking at property ownership, one of the things, there's an old saying is if you don't own your view, you shouldn't complain. Well, in this case, I think the Prestons did own their view or their sound or their right, because they moved in and they lived in an Ag 3 area. All across the streets an Ag 3, around them is an Ag 3. And all of a sudden you have someone move in and say, I want to put a sawmill in and I want to change this to Ag 2. And now we want to contract this out. We're only going to put Ag 2 in, and that's the only thing we're going to do. Well, that's still not what the property owners anticipated when they bought their property, the Prestons or whoever else is in that area. I think that's very important. I think we need to look at what you anticipate when you own property. I'll give you an example. The property to the north, we had addressed in, again, this is an apple and an orange, but it gives you an idea what to anticipate. The property to the north, we just approved a pallet, I believe it was a pallet or a construction or a shed making operation of Mr. Hirschberger's father. Now that was done not on a rezoning, but that was done on a special land use permit. And the difference I see in that is that that is a known, if you purchase or own property across the street from something that a special land use can be used, then you're probably put on some notice that your view, as I said earlier, could change, or your anticipation of the property could change. In this case, we're talking a total rezoning, not a special land use, not a special permission to use an existing zoning area. This is a brand new zoning area, stuck dead in the middle of an Ag 3 district. To me, again, we're calling this contract zoning, and it does fit into the definition of contract zoning, but it's a bad example of contract zoning. I think this opens up our county board, and I think it also opens up the planning commission to being hard pressed to start denying or to start not just basically rubber stamping this going forward. I mean, this is not, it does not abut, we talked about Mader Brothers. I think that was kind of a red herring thrown out there, but that was in, we all know where Mader's Brothers, this isn't Mader Brothers operations. This is different. This is Ag 3. Again, yeah, I don't think someone who owns property should, there's never going to be an end to someone. If you own property, you don't know what's going to go across the street. So why would you want to take one of your largest investments in your life and basically risk that? Again, if we're talking a special land use, it's documented, but under this, no, it's not documented. Someone actually has to go in and physically change the zoning in this and stick it right in the middle of Ag 3. And to me, that's where I have a problem. That's my biggest issue with this. So again, I think I pretty much stated where I'm going to go on this. I'm going to be a no vote this evening, but I do encourage this board to really examine this and have a discussion on it. So that's all I have.
Just like to point out that it's conditional rezoning, not contract rezoning. It's a very special case. Conditional.
Or we're signing a contract, so.
Anybody else? Commissioner Green, Chairman Green.
In the literature we got, I believe it was from Mr. Pfeiffer. No, excuse me, must have been from Mr. Wise. There was pictures, I believe, of 11 other sawmills in the Rollin area down there. I don't know how close they were to where they want to put the sawmill. They were pictures of other small sawmills similar to the one that they had here. They had pictures of this sawmill somebody took of it. I believe that might have been by Mr. Pfeiffer, to show everything from the sawdust burning and things like this. I know I'm an older school guy on this board, and in a month from now I'll be gone. But as far as I'm concerned, a sawmill is part of agriculture. When I was a kid, we cut trees out of the woods, made logs, sawed them into wood, and that's what we had for boards to use. I don't know what Mr. Rothenberger's going to do with this thing, whether he's going to sell the wood. They didn't get into that. Make houses, whatever he's going to do, I don't know. They showed places where he made little pole barns and things like this and said something about someone comes in and buy them. But I'm going to support this evening and see where it goes. And get with Mr. Horton, I agree with him on his position. Let the board discuss this, and wherever the board comes out this afternoon, or this evening rather, that's where she is. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Commissioner Jaworski. You're muted.
You're muted, Jerry.
Okay.
And just say in another life, I'm a certified tree farmer and have 80 acres of
That's right.
by Harrison. And I know there is a lack of market for low-grade trees. And I don't know how many sawmills are in the area, but I'm sure there's people that have trees that would like to have them taken out. I'm cutting my own down, giving them away because there's no market for them. This provides some economic opportunity. It probably helps industry. It helps the family. I don't know, the pictures you talked about, George, I don't know if that was all the same sawmill, different views of it, or if they were separate sawmills. But I don't think there's an overabundance of sawmills for the tree farmers out there that would look to have a place to take their logs for milling and for sale. I'll probably vote, unless I hear something else, I'll probably vote in favor of the motion tonight.
Chairman Green.
One thing you got to remember, I know Mader Brothers was brought up and Weber Brothers. Those are both hardwood mills. They're oak, beech, whatever it is to saw. They don't saw much softwood in there. They're hardwood mills, and there's not a lot of places around to sell your softwood like pine, red pine, white pine, Norway, and all that stuff. And that's one thing the Amish take. If you go up the Beaverton Road and go down through there, get your eyes open, because they talked about just 4 truckloads of wood coming in. They're up on Beaverton Road that's probably 50, 60 foot high and probably a quarter mile long. Softwood that they're running in those mills. Another subject. Thank you.
Commissioner Hope.
Thank you. I'm gonna probably vote in favor of this tonight. I think with the conditions offered by Mr. Hirschberger, that as we've learned, we'll stay with that property regardless of what happens to the deed. We won't be seeing really bothersome things on that property, which are allowed in other Ag 2 properties, such as salvage yards, septic waste storage facilities. Mr. Hirschberger's offered that he won't be burning sawdust, which, as Mr. Nieport said, you have control over that kind of stuff with a site plan review also. Also some control over what that operation is. You talked about an insulated building for the generators to keep the noise down. We're talking about one bandsaw here, which I don't think is overly obnoxious, if that's a good word to use, maybe not. But also there's the fact that we've approved other zoning changes from Ag 3 to Ag 2 for this very purpose. And I think some consistency there is called for. Also, we have, I learned that in Rowland Township, we have 65 Amish families, making up about 440 individuals, and they make a living off their land. And certainly I would think that this is an economic activity that's beneficial to that community.
Anybody else? Commissioner Swaney.
My thoughts on this is I don't see anything outstanding to deny it. I believe from what I'm seeing, the area is changing. Amish are moving in, and this is what's happening in the area. But my biggest point for voting in favor of this is just that I would back the zoning board. They're in a tough position, and they are also more of an expert on this than I am. They see this over and over monthly. And I think they need to see our support of them in their position and not go against their ruling. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be supporting this evening. It is an economic development for the township, and it's a opportunity for the family. And there is a process to deal with any kind of objections or concerns. That's what conditional means. And so if there's nothing else, we'll be working on this evening. And with that concludes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item D is intergovernmental affairs. We have none this evening. We have no item E, administrator controller issues. We have no unfinished business. I'm going to go down and close out the last two items before we go to the closed session. So item 11 is general public comment. And Nicole, anybody that would like to speak now?
We have no general public comment at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It moves us on to announcements. Are there any announcements?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I think we all read in the paper that we had an officer, a sheriff's deputy shot the other night responding to an armed robbery. And so I just want to take this opportunity to express how much we appreciate those men and women in the sheriff's department. I mean, most of us, when we go to work every day, we don't have to worry about getting shot at. And these folks, these men and women, put their life on the line to keep everyone else safe. And I would just like to express how appreciative we are of those folks.
Any other announcements?
Chairman Green. Totally echoing Commissioner Hope's statement. You look at the Morning Sun today, that was front and center along with a stabbing and a death in our community. So again, utmost respect for law enforcement. And again, just as I always try to do, as everyone knows, with the COVID-19 and some of the closures that's just taken place, either already done in the county building, but going on, especially starting 12:01 this evening or Wednesday morning, our county is going to change a little bit in the next few weeks. Wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands. Let's all work together on this. We're getting close. It's coming. As you read, 90 and 94% efficacy in immunizations. So it's coming. We're getting near the end, but we just got to hang in there and don't get COVID fatigue, as I call it. We just got to stay as one community. So that's all I have on that.
Commissioner Engler, do you have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
Did you have your hand up?
Okay. No, I didn't.
Commissioner Marino.
Yeah, just like to say mask up. It's been reported this past week that it not only helps other people from getting COVID, but it helps you from getting it too. Also get your flu shot. And also more or less, the main thing is we're all this together. So we have to think as a community and as a society, not just my own personal feelings. Otherwise, lots of people are not going to survive.
Any other announcements? Hearing no further announcements, we're going to go back to item A in new business. Closed session. I need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session, Horton.
Second, Jelazinski.
And moved and supported to, I don't need a roll call on that, to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in closed session. Carrie, welcome to closed session. And is Jane's going to come along?
I think we have to log.
I didn't even see you.
I think we have to go out. We have to leave, don't
Yeah,
we?
you have to go out and come back in.
I got to step away just for 2 minutes here. I got to use the facility, so I'm going to pop in and then I'm going to leave for 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay, well, Judge James, let's take a 3-minute recess or something, Mr. Horton.
Yeah, I would vote for that one. So,
All right, let's just take a few minutes here to.
right. We leave our meeting, correct? That's what we do.
Yes.
We leave the meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Judge, good to see you.
I think the judge has left the meeting.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Hi, how are you, Commissioner?
We have to get out and come back in?
Huh?
We have to get out and come back in?
No, I don't think.
I just said we were doing a.
Once I set up the closed session, you'll actually be invited to join the closed session room. So we'll wait till everyone comes back in the meeting to set that up.
Yes.
Do we leave the meeting now?
I don't realize the time it takes.
No, what I'll do is set up the breakout room and you'll have to join the breakout room. For those of you on it, I'll just set it up now and then I'll go back into the meeting and wait for Commissioner Horton and the other commissioners to rejoin us.
That's my mistake, Nicole. I forgot about how it goes into the breakout room, and I'm still not used to being alone. There's people out here in my audience. I need people.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I know, Margaret.
Jeez,
I don't
you're
have
not alone. You have people out
right
here.
in the football games. They got statues out there, and I don't have anybody.
Okay, I'll put some statutes in the seats next time. Huh? Xerox. Some.
Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Hey, George. Pardon?
Can you hear me, Commissioner? This is Judge James.
No, Judge, I hear you good.
Okay, good. I just didn't know if I need to do anything more to reconnect when they come back.
Right. Well, Nicole will take that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm gonna assign you your rooms now. So if you want to join the room, others will join as they enter as they come back in the meeting.
Am I going to have to do anything to join?
Yeah, Nicole, I think that there are some people who don't know what you're talking about for sure. So is there an action that any of us have to take to join this room?
Yes, I believe when I create the room, you will have to press join.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
going to.
That's fine. I just didn't want the judge or anyone else to get lost in the process. So we're just going to push join.
I will make certain that all commissioners, the judge, you and Carrie Curtis are in the room. We've lost Brenda. I don't know if she'll be coming back on. There she is. She's back. So
Brenda's here.
Okay, I'm gonna open those rooms so you should get something that says join. So Commissioners Horton and Marino, I've assigned you to the breakout room. You should have received something that you can click on to join that breakout room and join the other commissioners in the closed session. Do you see something that says join, Commissioner?
I don't. I just see something that says leave. Got it. Oh, I see breakout room.
Just push that or it might.
Okay,
say
got it.
join. Okay, we'll see you there. Thanks for staying back, ladies. If one of you would want to change your name to board is in closed session or just closed session, it's super helpful. And I'll make sure everybody's in the room.
I forgot how to change my name. So. Can you hear me, Jess?
Yes, I can. And
Okay.
it does
And
say
it's-
now closed session on YouTube.
Yep. Okay.
Nice job.
I see everybody but George.
Our administrator McAvoy is helping.
It would appear that way.
All right, there you go. I think we're back in open session now. Everybody,
Yes, you are.
all right, thank you. Now we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Horton.
Second, Joe Lozinski.
Been moved and supported to adjourn. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Don't even get to vote. I'm saying aye. See you back here in a few.
Yeah, about 40 minutes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Brenda, thank you very much.